Good evening and welcome to the Cybersecurity and Cryptocurrency Podcast. I'm your host, Eric English. Today is Monday, August the 27th of 2018. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It's been certainly a newsworthy weekend. So we got a lot of updates to talk about, primarily in the cybersecurity realm. But still some crypto news too, just a little bit at least. So we'll start off with cybersecurity news. There's so much going on, so I'm going to make sure I cover it all and give some thoughts and opinions on these items here. The first one, there was for anybody that runs a WordPress website, which I know there's millions of them out there on the web, and some companies even use these for their company websites. There's been a vulnerability found in a particular theme in WordPress. The theme is called TagDiv, and essentially it redirects users to malicious sites and allows an attacker to create a backdoor on the server and do all kinds of other crazy stuff. So if you run a WordPress website, I know WordPress has thousands of plugins. So if you run a WordPress site, check your plugins, see if you've got this one installed. I'll post the link in the show notes so you can check it out. But if you run WordPress, definitely check out this vulnerability, because essentially an attacker can have a backdoor into your system, and that can allow them to pretty much do anything. They can serve up malware to anybody that visits your site. They can serve up a crypto mining piece of malware to somebody, or even ransomware. You name it, they can pretty much do it. They could also mine directly on your server if they wanted to. They could mine for crypto using your server's resources. So be on the lookout for that, especially if you use WordPress. That's a pretty big vulnerability. WordPress in general has been pretty vulnerable as well. Seems like at least 2 or 3 times a month there's a different WordPress vulnerability that's found. It's a shame because there's so many different things you can do with WordPress, and it's actually really nice. It's easy for the non-HTML person or just the average everyday user to set up a blog and do all kinds of cool stuff, but it's just not very secure in general, and they've tried to make it better. There's actually plugins that do help with security. There's one called WordFence that I've used before. WordFence is pretty good in my opinion. So if you're looking to add a plugin that will enhance security, WordFence is well worth. I want to say it's $10 or something. It's not too bad. So check out WordFence if you haven't already, and get that installed on your WordPress site. They have a free version too. It's not very expensive. Like I said, I think it's $10 maybe a month, or maybe just $10 in general. But check it out if you are looking to secure your WordPress site. And be careful when you secure it with WordFence, because you can lock yourself out of a lot of things too if you don't do it right. So be a little cautious as well. So for all you WordPress folks, check that out. The next one was about yet another Intel chip flaw. It's called Foreshadow. And they're basically saying in this one that the Foreshadow attack can extract data from the level 1 cache. And so, most people are familiar with L2 cache. That's the specs that you read for processors. You'll see L2 cache and things like that. Well, L1 cache apparently is what carries a lot of the sensitive data, and this new Foreshadow attack allows them to access that protected spot in the processors and kind of get around any built-in security controls that the processor itself has. So yet another Intel flaw, and said it a couple weeks ago that we're going to get to the point where these systems are just too vulnerable to even have in your enterprise. And if you haven't already started going through your list of systems and finding which systems have these processors, I would highly recommend doing that now before it's too late. You don't want this to affect you, and who knows how many more vulnerabilities they're going to find. So buy a newer system and make sure that you're not susceptible to these attacks, because there could be more vulnerabilities they're going to find with these. So check your inventory systems and see what kind of processors you've got and get those out of your environment. Or, I mean, Intel's already released patches for this, so I mean, I guess you can patch it as well. You know, ideally you just get rid of the systems, because the patches, at least from what everybody says, they're not, you know, exactly perfect. They do help, obviously, but they're not really something you should rely on that much. You should definitely, you know, replace the system and get something with a newer processor that doesn't have all these vulnerabilities, because that's pretty scary stuff that they can get that stuff out of your level 1 cache from the processor. But I'll post the article for that as well in the show notes. Check that out as well. There was something that came out last week, and I don't think I talked about it, but wanted to bring it up again just in case. So Facebook had their own VPN built into their Facebook app, I believe, and maybe even through their website. But essentially, Apple banned this Facebook VPN and made Facebook remove it because of privacy issues. You know, go figure, with all the things going on with Facebook, privacy related, that they they have a VPN that they're funneling people through, that, guess what, they're still spying on people. Ay, man. You think that they would learn, with all the freaking things with Cambridge Analytica and all these different things that have happened, you'd think that they would learn by now to not spy on their users. Facebook has been banning various quizzes. They just banned another quiz that had access to 2 million people's data, and you know, the list just keeps growing. But they basically said that this other vendor misused their data, yada yada yada. So it's good that they're kicking those quiz apps out of the Facebook realm, but you know, having a VPN where you tell people you can browse anonymously and it's super secure, but we're going to spy on you in the meantime. That's not exactly, you know, morally correct, or something that you want to do to your end users, unless they explicitly opt in and say, yeah, it's okay for you to spy on me. But I don't know anybody that's going to say yes to that. It'd be pretty rare when somebody would say yes to that. Not that you're doing anything malicious, you just don't want somebody to be all up in your business, you know? The internet's supposed to be anonymous. But not if you're using Facebook's VPN. But Apple did make them pull it from the App Store. I assume that Google will follow suit shortly thereafter. And I'm not sure what the future holds for their VPN, the Facebook VPN. They may just, you know, scratch the whole thing, because now this news is out with the privacy issues. They may just say, you know what, it's not worth it, just dump it. So we'll see what happens in the long run with that VPN. But even if they did come back and say, hey, guess what, we're not going to spy on you anymore, and this VPN is now secure, and blah, 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 would you ever believe them? Would you trust them again? I'm not sure that I would. You know, because you do that once, and then you apologize, and you say it's fixed. I mean, how do we really, really, really know that it's fixed? Sure, they're going to spout off all kinds of technical controls that they've done, and, oh, we've secured this, that, and the other thing, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's great. How do I know You can say that you've done all these things. How do I know you've done these things? How can I validate that you're not still spying on me? You really can't, because the nature of a VPN is it's funneling you and tunneling you to a specific server, and on that server all of your data is passing through that system. So I mean, everything that you browse is passing through that VPN server that you're connected to. So, yes, VPNs do technically keep you more secure, but you have to be very careful with any VPN that you get. There's so many privacy concerns around. There's all kinds of different sites that list all the various VPNs and which ones are better than others and don't have all these privacy issues and that really don't track your information and things like that. So be very cautious when you're buying a VPN. Make sure that they're really not going to track everything that you do. And if they do, then it's time to find a new VPN provider. Just go with somebody else. There's even some folks that have done a VPN to AWS, which I thought was interesting. But the problem there is you pay with usage. So yes, you can spin up an Ubuntu server in AWS and configure a VPN on there and sign into that and browse, which is great, but I don't know, you pay for usage. So if you're on that VPN a lot, it might be kind of expensive. So typically Amazon charges for bandwidth to and from their systems. So if there's a lot of stuff that you're chewing up, a lot of data, they're going to charge you for that. Other people have used their home router to do a VPN. If you're not too concerned about your home IP address showing up on a website that you browse, that's certainly an option too. But just kind of depends on what you want to do and what your needs are as well for that. But don't ever use Facebook's VPN. That'd be my suggestion. The last thing I wanted to talk about, we've just started kind of going through this at my job. There's a hacking tool out there. It's been around for a long time called Mimikatz, and it's basically a way to get passwords and password hashes. And if your systems are not configured correctly, you can get passwords in clear text, or you can just get the password hash. So as a security guy, I would much rather somebody get the password hash, not the actual password itself. That to me is really scary. Plain text passwords being in memory, it's in the LSASS process. So if you open up your task manager, you'll see that process. And that little process stores your passwords for various things. So change those registry settings. You can push this out with a GPO. But the really cool part, and I just kind of started getting into this, and there's a lot to it, but you can choose to not cache credentials at all, which I don't really recommend doing that, because if you're off the network and you try to log in, your login probably would not work because it wouldn't be able to contact a domain controller. And that kind of defeats the purpose of, if you have a mobile workforce, you can't really do that. But if you have a bunch of workstations that aren't going anywhere, then yeah, you could certainly do that. There could be ramifications if your domain controller goes offline. That could be an issue, all kinds of stuff. But highly recommend looking into those registry settings. There's a few registry strings that you can change to at least not store these things in clear text, because for goodness sakes, passwords in clear text is just, it's kind of absurd that they're even still doing that. But you can at least change that in the registry. There's a quick registry tweak for that. it still caches credentials. But the other part to this, you have to have, first, the prerequisite is you have to have your domain functional level at Server 2012 in order to have this functionality. But in Server 2012, Microsoft released what's called the Protected Users Group. And so you can essentially add your high-value targets or protected users to this group. And supposedly it prevents caching of credentials, and always does the password hash and so on and so forth. I haven't dug into it yet much because I can't quite do this yet. We haven't met the prerequisite, but we're getting there, and as soon as we do, we're going to start adding people to the protected users group. Now, they did say that you don't want to put service accounts in that protected users group, and you don't want to put computer accounts in there. Now, computer accounts I understand, but I wasn't quite sure why you wouldn't want to put service accounts in there. Service accounts are just as important and just as vulnerable, depending on what it's doing. But I'll post that article too for y'all to check out. Pretty cool stuff. So start changing those registry settings and lock down your Active Directory even further. So on to cryptocurrency news. The market was actually trading pretty well today. It was 6,700 at the last time I looked at it, so it's actually holding its ground pretty well. So that's been good. It's good to see that. It hasn't dropped a whole lot lately. Ethereum was still trading around 280-ish, so Ethereum's still way down in the grand scheme of things. But nonetheless, that's good news for traders, so hopefully the market keeps going up like that. But the other news was the India Central Bank. They created their own unit, they call, to basically work on the blockchain regulation. And another one of these cryptocurrency exchange CEOs came out and said that's the biggest issue with cryptocurrency, is the fact that there's no regulations on it, and people can basically just do whatever the hell they want, which is mostly true. So the India Central Bank has decided they're going to build a team to take this on and help with these regulations. So I think it's moving in the right direction, and I do think that the regulations will help, at least, in general. I just hope it's not overburdening everybody with regulations. Yes, there needs to be some, but we don't need to over-regulate it. And I really think that that's part of the reason why the ETFs haven't cleared with the SEC yet either. They denied all 9 of the proposals, yet they're going back and looking at it again. But the SEC probably looks at it and says, this is an unregulated currency. Why would we put this on the stock exchange? That doesn't seem like a good idea for something that's not regulated, that could, really, if you have a ton of money in Bitcoin and you wanted to make the market jump, you certainly could. So these huge hedge fund investors that have billions of dollars to invest, they could be like, hey, we're going to make the market go down today at this time. So everybody sell, and we're going to sell $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. And so then the market dips a little bit, and then they say, okay, at this time we're going to, once it dips, then they buy more, maybe smaller amounts, and then go add their $2 billion back to it, and then sell it again once they've added that $2 billion back to it. So they can essentially manipulate the market and just keep making money. But, however, you have to have tons of money to even be able to do that. It may even take more than $2 billion. I'm not even sure what that number would be. But, if you can make the price fluctuate by $100, I think that's pretty significant for Bitcoin. So, the fact that, you could potentially be doing that is why we need regulations. And that's just one of the many reasons why we need regulations, and it's also one of the reasons that, at least I think, that the SEC doesn't want to approve having Bitcoin traded on the stock market, which I can't really say that I blame them. You know, all of crypto has had a really big black eye because of all the hacks and stuff that happen and things like that, but I think, you know, the regulation is just going to help. So hopefully we get to that point sooner rather than later, but we will see what happens. What was the other thing? Ethereum is up for a big update in October, and apparently they had a big meeting last week, and there was more questions than answers about the upgrade that's going to happen in October. Now, we're right around the corner from October. You know, we're a little over a month away. Today's the 27th of August, so that's pretty quick turnaround on this. And you know, if they can't come together and find a solution for this, then they're going to have some big issues moving forward. And I think, yeah, at least what I've been reading and watching the price of Ethereum tank like it has over the last several months, I think people are losing faith in Ethereum, and they're moving to other smart contract technologies like EOS and others that we've talked about on here. And I think that's what's contributing to Ethereum's decline in value, because typically when Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum would go up right with it. However, if Bitcoin dipped down to, what was it, 5,500, 5,600, whatever it was, and it's back up to 6,700, but Ethereum hasn't really gone up as much as you would think it would. Ethereum's still at 280, which is substantially low. Usually, at least earlier this year anyway, when we were trading at 6,700 in Bitcoin, Ethereum was trading at 400, then 350, then 300, and now it's down to 280. So I think people are losing faith in Ethereum. At least that's what it seems like. That's what the markets are telling us. So it'll be interesting to see what this October update means. If it's going to be a hard fork or what exactly it's going to be. If it's just going to be an upgrade to their current system, we shall see. But apparently they can't agree on any of the changes, and people just have more questions than answers. So that's certainly not good for the future of Ethereum. And because of some of these changes, you may see some major price fluctuation in Ethereum on all of the trading platforms. So be aware of that, and just, you know, watch that price, because it could very well dip. And when it dips, that's usually the best time to buy. I know it sounds crazy, but if you can catch it at its lowest point and you buy and it goes back up, that's when you make some money. I did that recently with Bitcoin when it was down in the 5,600 range. I bought some, and now it's back up to 6,700, so I made a little bit back there, at least enough to reinvest and do it again. So I'm waiting on the market to fluctuate again before I invest in Bitcoin again. Anyway, that's all I had for today. As we get further down our trail of preventing these Mimikatz kind of attacks, I will update on kind of the mitigations that we went through. But for anybody that has already done this and you want to give me some advice and let me know how it's working for you, I'd love to hear from you. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at eEnglish34 on Twitter. Again, at eEnglish34 on Twitter. So hit me up there if you have any recommendations for that, or you've already done it. But we're just kind of diving in real big here and trying to just secure everything as best we can. I know this is a very popular type of attack, and we're just trying to make sure that we are as secure as we possibly can be, and hopefully through this podcast we can help other people do the same in their environments. But we'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk at about 5:30 tomorrow.